At 1:41 in the morning, 30,971 people in the Bay Area woke up at the same time. No alarm, no notification. The ground did it, rolling and shaking as a wave moved through the Santa Cruz Mountains and spread north through the peninsula, east across the bay, and south into the valley. The earthquake originated near Boulder Creek at a depth of about 6 miles on or near the San Andreas Fault. Magnitude 4.6, no structural damage. One gas leak in the mountains. Behind today's magnitude, 4.6 is the San Andreas Fault, the most famous fault in America, the one that ruptured in 1906, the one everyone calls the Big One's address. Behind the San Andreas is the number every seismologist actually watches, 158. That is how many years it has been since the Hayward Fault last broke. The average time between ruptures on the Hayward is 140 years. The Hayward does not run through open mountains. It runs through downtown Oakland, through the campus of UC Berkeley, and under the stadium where 63,000 people sit on game day. This is not the story of a magnitude 4.6 that shook windows. This is the story of the fault nobody mentioned after it did. The Santa Cruz Mountains are not a random location on the San Andreas. On October 17, 1989, at 5:04 p.m., the same segment produced the Loma Prieta earthquake, magnitude 6.9, 15 seconds of shaking, 63 people dead. A magnitude 6.9 earthquake releases roughly 300 times more energy than today's magnitude 4.6. The Cypress Freeway, Interstate 880, a double-deck structure running through Oakland, pancaked. 42 of the 63 deaths happened there in less than 15 seconds beneath concrete that was supposed to hold. Total damage, $6 billion in 1989. But the Hayward Fault's average rupture interval, based on 5 events traced back to 1315 AD, is 140 years. It has been 158 years since it last broke. The San Andreas is overdue. The Hayward is more overdue. And almost none of this morning's coverage mentioned the Hayward once. The Hayward Fault runs for 74 miles through Richmond, El Cerrito, Berkeley, Oakland, San Leandro, Hayward, Fremont, San Jose. Not near those cities. Through them. In 1868, when the fault last broke, 24,000 people lived in Alameda County. That number is now 2.5 million. USGS geophysicist Tom Brosher has said in public briefings that a major Hayward rupture would cut the water supply to 2.4 million Bay Area residents. The East Bay Municipal Utility District pipelines cross the fault at multiple points. When the fault moves, those crossings fail. The question is how long repairs take, days or weeks. A city with ruptured gas lines would have nothing to fight the fires with. The 1906 San Francisco earthquake killed more people through fire than through shaking. The fire department's water mains were broken. The USGS HayWired scenario projects damage exceeding $165 billion from a major Hayward rupture. There is a 33% probability of a magnitude 6.7 or greater in the next 30 years from the Hayward and Rogers Creek fault system alone. That is the probability for a single fault. Not distant, not theoretical. But here is what the records actually showed. The record in question is a specific document. That document is UCRF 3, the Uniform California Earthquake Rupture Forecast version 3, published in 2015. It runs to hundreds of pages of seismic data, paleoseismic trench records, and fault geometry models. Tom Jordan, director of the Southern California Earthquake Center and a co-author, said at its release that we know that tectonic forces are continually tightening the springs of the San Andreas Fault system, making big quakes inevitable. He was not talking only about the San Andreas. He was talking about the system, which includes the Hayward, which has been accumulating strain while California went about its business. The Hayward creeps along certain sections at roughly 5 millimeters per year, slow enough to go unnoticed, and fast enough to bend sidewalk curbs over decades. Drive along Milvia Street in Berkeley and look at the gutters. Some of them are visibly offset from where they were poured, but creep is not release. The northern segment running through Berkeley and Richmond locks. Geophysicist David Schwartz at the USGS, who has spent decades trenching the Hayward to read its history in layers of sediment, describes the northern segment as carrying the accumulated stress of a century and a half of plate motion with no outlet. That motion runs at about 9 millimeters per year. Over 158 years, that is roughly 1,400 millimeters of stored displacement, nearly 5 feet, waiting to release in seconds. The 1868 earthquake released approximately 6 feet of horizontal offset. Engineers understood this well enough that when UC Berkeley's Memorial Stadium required seismic retrofitting, completed in 2012 at a cost of $321 million, they did not move the fault. They cut the stadium in half. A structural expansion joint now runs through the center, allowing the two concrete halves to slide independently. The seat numbers skip across the joint as if nothing happened. For a Hayward rupture centered under Oakland, ShakeAlert, the USGS early warning system would deliver roughly 1 to 3 seconds of warning to Oakland addresses before the destructive wave arrives. 1 to 3 seconds. Enough to stop a BART train automatically, not enough to reach a doorframe. The people nearest the fault get the least warning. The pipeline crossings carrying water from Sierra Nevada reservoirs get the same 3 seconds as everything else. The HayWired scenario models what happens after the shaking stops. Fires start within minutes as gas lines rupture across the East Bay. Water pressure drops as pipeline crossings fail. Stanford geophysicist Mary Lou Zoback, who contributed to the modeling, said the rebuilding, not the response, will take up to a decade. That estimate assumes the water comes back. The Bay Area has been here before. In 1989, the warning pointed at the right fault segment. The earthquake came on an oblique reverse fault that had not been mapped. USGS seismologist Alan Lynn had issued forecasts for the Santa Cruz Mountains as early as 1983. The mechanism was wrong. 63 people died anyway. The Cypress Freeway was not rebuilt for 8 years. When it reopened in 1997, the column stubs of the old elevated structure were left standing in the median as markers. They are still there. Remnants of a structure that collapsed in 15 seconds on a fault 60 miles away, killing 42 people in a double-deck freeway that a 1988 seismic study had already flagged as vulnerable. The retrofit had not yet been funded when the ground moved. The Hayward Fault runs 4 miles east of those column stubs. Somewhere in the Bay Area, 30,000 people went back to sleep after the 1:41 a.m. shake. They checked their phones, felt the house settle, and closed their eyes. The morning brought headlines about the San Andreas and preparedness checklists. The Hayward Fault was not mentioned in most of them. There is a particular kind of risk that a famous danger produces, the risk of watching the famous thing so intently that the adjacent thing goes unwatched. David Schwartz has not changed his assessment. The Hayward is locked, the stress is accumulated, and the average interval between ruptures has already been exceeded. The water pipes that supply Oakland cross the fault at multiple points. The fix has been planned in phases. Some crossings have been retrofitted, not all. The fault is still there. The gap is too. And the 33% window in UCER F3 does not shrink. It advances every year. The Hayward stays silent because every year of silence is another year of accumulated plate motion stored in locked rock that has not found its outlet yet. The San Andreas is the fault everyone is watching. The Hayward is the fault that runs under their feet.